My awful auntie destroyed my artwork. This is what happened. I wasn't happy when Mom asked me if Aunt Sarah could live with us for a while. I love her, but I don't like her very much. Sarah has always found ways to tell me I'm basically a failure and I'm wasting my life, but she'd pretend like she was just trying to be helpful. Like giving constructive criticism while deconstructing everything I've ever done in my life. I'm only 16, but according to Aunt Sarah, I've already destroyed my life like 10 times. So a few weeks ago, my Aunt Sarah moved in with me and my mom. She's going through a divorce and couldn't stand to be around my uncle anymore. At least that's what she told my mom. I think the truth is more likely that he stopped giving in to her every demand, and that's what she couldn't stand. Aunt Sarah's comments started immediately. I'd get home from my art classes on Mondays and Thursdays, and I'd sit at the table with my mom and tell her what I did those days and show her photos that I had taken of the progress of whatever I was working on. It was our routine. We would have hot chocolate and snacks and would talk about art. Mom was supportive, and we'd explore ideas together. She encouraged me. My aunt was different, though. A few years ago, I showed her my sketchbook, and she said, "You're very expressive. It's good that you don't worry about accuracy. I'm sure that makes more room for your creativity." When I was 14 and spent most of Christmas morning reading on the couch, she had laughed and said, "You know, Rebecca, some people use books to hide from real relationships." She always said things like that with a tone that made it sound like advice. If I looked hurt, she'd add, "Don't look at me like that. You're like a turtle always hiding in that shell. I'm just trying to help you out of it sometimes." When Aunt Sarah first moved in, she talked about her divorce endlessly. My time with my mom was always overshadowed by Sarah and her complaints. I'd start saying something to my mom and Sarah would talk over me. She'd always made it clear that she hadn't wanted children, had never liked them, and considered that one of the smartest decisions she'd ever made. "They're loud, they're messy, and they think the world revolves around them," she said once, glancing at me. No offense, Rebecca. Sarah was nothing like my mom. She wasn't warm or caring, and most of the time when she talked, it was about herself, not exactly mom material. I didn't take offense at her not wanting kids, because I'd feel sorry for anyone that had her as their mom. The first Thursday that I came home from art class, I sat down at the table with my mom, showing her a sketch, and I was explaining my ideas when Aunt Sarah came into the kitchen. "Oh, you're still doing art?" she said. "That's nice. I just hope you're not neglecting more practical skills." On Sunday, Mom was taking me to lunch. This is our monthly treat. And when Sarah saw me, she crossed her arms and said, "You dress very comfortably. I guess that's popular now." If Mom pushed back, which she did at times, Sarah would sigh and say something like, "I'm just worried about her future, Lizzie. You don't want to set her up for disappointment." Slowly, relentlessly, she criticized everything about me. My reading became avoidance, and she said, "Escapism isn't good for you, not in the amount you do it." My quietness became socially concerning. My lack of interest in TikTok became naivete. If I stayed home, I was isolating myself. If I went out, she commented on what I wore. There was no version of me that was right. What made it worse was how she always framed it as concern. "I just don't want you to struggle later," she'd say. "No one helped me when I was young." She inserted herself into every conversation. The kitchen table, once my safe place, became a stage. I stopped talking about art. I stopped bringing my work home. I started answering questions with one-word responses, shrinking into myself. I cried more often than I ever had before, quietly and secretly, so she couldn't criticize me for it. I cried in the shower so no one would hear, or I cried into my pillow at night with my door locked. I wanted to have a talk and explain to my mom what was happening, but Sarah was always there, always listening and always waiting to reframe whatever I said. I hardly ever spent any time with my mom alone anymore. Then came something I was really proud of. The sculpture took me 3 weeks to make, and I was so excited to show it to my mom. It was a birthday present for her that I had managed to keep a secret. 2 orcas swimming together, one large, steady and protective, one calf, and they were both breaching from the water side by side. The big one was Mom, of course, and the smaller one was me, together and moving forward. I had sculpted it, and I painted it, and I think it looked really pretty good. When I brought it home, Mom gasped. "Rebecca," she murmured, "this is beautiful." "I made it for your birthday, but I couldn't wait another week to give it to you," I explained. Mom hugged me. "It's perfect. I'm going to put it right on this table." Sarah glanced over. "It's very big," she said. "Are you sure that's appropriate for the living room?" Mom ignored her and placed it carefully on the coffee table. "I love it," she said. "Everyone will see how talented you are." Sarah made a sound. "Well, let's hope it doesn't get in the way." The next time my mom and I had our monthly Sunday lunch, I had a great time. It was just us, just like old times. We laughed and talked, and I loved every minute of it. I had really missed my mom, and I only realized just how much when we got to spend time together without Aunt Sarah. But my happiness didn't last long. When we came home, my sculpture was on the floor. The orcas were no longer on the stand of water that I had spent hours shaping. They were broken and separated. Tears filled my eyes as I looked at the baby orca with a broken fin, no longer attached to its mom. "Oh," Sarah said calmly from the couch. "Yeah, that happened." She explained it like an inconvenience. Reaching for her charger, the sculpture being bulky, gravity happened. It was an accident, and the result was lying in pieces. She hadn't even picked up the pieces. She just left them where they had apparently fallen. I didn't argue. I gathered the pieces and carried them to my room, my hands shaking and my nose starting to run from tears. Mom scolded Sarah for being clumsy, but I knew it was intentional. Mom came to my room later and hugged me. "We can fix it," she promised. "I'll go to the store and get super glue." When she left, the house went quiet. I opened my phone and started recording. I kept an audio diary on my phone. It's something I had started doing after Aunt Sarah moved in. "I feel like I'm disappearing," I said quietly into my phone. "Like I'm wrong all the time." The door opened and Sarah stepped in. She hadn't knocked. She just flung open my bedroom door like she had every right to. I put my phone face down on my bed. I didn't tell her I was recording, and I didn't end the recording either. Whatever she was going to say, I was going to capture it. "You know, your mother has failed you, Rebecca," she began calmly. "She's filled your head with praise instead of realism. You wouldn't be this upset about a lump of clay if she had taught you that you're just not that talented. It's really not that much of a loss when you really think about it." My heart pounded, but I stayed silent. "I did you a favor knocking over that thing you called art," she continued. "It was amateur at best. I saved you the embarrassment of other people seeing that." She actually smiled at me while she went on talking. "You're just average. Accepting that will help you grow. All the time you think you're gifted, you're not truly understanding that you're failing. Your mom really did you an injustice filling your head with praise and calling what you do talent." Aunt Sarah kept that smile on her face the whole time she ripped into me, then leaned in and hugged me tightly. I didn't hug her back. "You'll thank me one day," she said. She stood at my door and looked around my bedroom, shaking her head. "You're too old to believe that dreams come true. You need real prospects, something you can make money from, not this art." She air quoted the word art with her fingers and then left. When Mom came home, she came to my room with the glue. I waved her inside, locked my door, and asked her to listen. I played the recording. She went silent, but it was clear that by the time the recording ended, she was furious. She asked me to go downstairs with her. Sarah was sitting on the couch, scrolling TikTok, and Mom just exploded at her. "How dare you?" Mom started. "How dare you speak to Rebecca the way you did today?" Sarah looked stunned for a moment, her usual calm mask slipping. "Lizzie, that's—" "No, Sarah," Mom said, cutting her off, her eyes blazing. "I've had enough of your cruelty. You've been poisoning this house for too long. You can pack up and go. Don't text, don't call, don't come back." Sarah's lips pressed into a thin line. "You're overreacting. I'm sure she's made some things up to make the conversation sound worse than it was." "It was recorded, Sarah. I heard every word you said." I was trying to help her. "You've been coddling her, and I'm not going to sit by and watch you raise a child who thinks she can't do any wrong." I could barely breathe. Sarah's words, the same words she always used, still stung, but Mom didn't flinch. "Help her?" Mom snapped. "You call knocking over her sculpture, telling her she's worthless and saying she has no talent helpful? You're delusional. You've been undermining everything I've tried to build with her." Sarah straightened, her voice icy and calm. "I'm practical. She needs to see reality. I saved her from embarrassment. She needed a wake-up call. Mom took a step closer to her. A wake-up call? You humiliated her in her own home. You targeted a child because you couldn't handle your own bitterness. She's 16, Sarah. She doesn't need to hear your wisdom, of which you have none, by the way. Sarah opened her mouth, paused, and finally said, "You don't think I know how cruel the world can be?" Mom's voice softened just slightly, but only a fraction. "I do know the world can be cruel, but she doesn't need you making her life cruel at home. She needs a safe place, a place where she can grow, make mistakes, and learn without constant fear of judgment from somebody who's supposed to care." Sarah's shoulders sagged slightly, but her pride was still there. "You think you're protecting her, but you're doing too much. You're raising a child who will be naive and weak." Mom shook her head. "No, Sarah, that's where you're wrong. You want me to raise my child with the same hatred for kids that you have, and boy, am I glad you don't have any kids. Because you would destroy them like you tried to destroy your own niece. Now get out." Sarah stared at her, eyes narrowing. "Fine. I'll pack my bags and you can throw your only sister out." "To save my daughter, I'd throw out anyone and everyone," Mom replied. The front door slammed 20 minutes later when Sarah left. That night, Mom and I glued the orcas back together. The cracks showed, delicate lines across their painted bodies, but the sculpture stood tall once more. I pressed the pieces together carefully, trying to line up the cracks perfectly. "They're still strong," Mom said, brushing a strand of hair away from my face. "Just like you." At my next art class, Mom came along and sat quietly in the back watching me work. Partway through, Mom put on an apron and joined in. I felt happy again. I know I'm not the best artist or the most talented one, but I do it because I love it, and I'm proud to say I won't give up on it, even if someone in my own family tries to dim my creative light. Now sitting on the coffee table on either side of the orca sculpture are my and my mom's starfish tea light holders. Every time I look at them, I remember the day Mom and I got covered in clay, couldn't make a proportionate star between the two of us, but laughed more than we had in weeks. They make me smile more than any perfect piece of art could. If you enjoyed this reading, please hit like and subscribe so you don't miss future stories. We'd love to hear from you in the comments. This has been Tales by Rachel, where we breathe life into every story.